I watched my sister forge my father's signature on his will. She thought I was too broken to fight back. She thought wrong. What I did next destroyed her perfect life in ways she never saw coming. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why some betrayals demand the kind of revenge that changes everything. Stay until the end, because what happened in that courtroom will shock you. My name is Alexandra Morrison, and this is the story of how my own sister tried to steal everything my father built, and how I took it all back, along with something she valued even more. Subscribe and hit that notification bell, because stories like this, real family betrayals, calculated revenge and justice that hits harder than any courtroom drama, these are the stories you need to hear. And trust me, this one will keep you on the edge of your seat. 3 years ago, I was standing in the rain outside St. Michael's Cathedral, watching them lower my father's casket into the ground. I was 26 years old, and I had just lost the only parent who ever truly understood me. My mother had passed when I was 7, so Dad had been everything, my rock, my mentor, my best friend. But as I stood there, mascara running down my face, I had no idea that the real nightmare was just beginning. My older sister, Victoria, stood beside me under a designer black umbrella. She looked perfect, as always. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect composure. She squeezed my hand and whispered, "We'll get through this together, Alex. We're all each other has now." I believed her. God help me, I actually believed her. The next morning, we met at Dad's lawyer's office for the reading of the will. Victoria arrived early, dressed in a sharp black suit that probably cost more than my rent. I came straight from Dad's house, where I'd been staying to sort through his things, wearing jeans and one of his old sweaters because it still smelled like him. Thomas Cartwright, Dad's attorney for 30 years, sat behind his massive oak desk looking uncomfortable. He kept adjusting his glasses and clearing his throat. Finally, he spoke. "Ladies, I'm going to be direct. Your father left very specific instructions about his estate. My father, Robert Morrison, had built Morrison Tech Solutions from nothing. What started in a garage had become a multi-million-dollar cybersecurity firm. Forbes had listed him among the top 50 self-made entrepreneurs in the country. His estate was worth approximately $8 million, including the company, his properties, and investments. Thomas pulled out a document and began reading. "To my daughter, Victoria, who has always chosen her own path, I leave the sum of $500,000. It is my hope that this will provide her with security and freedom to pursue her ambitions." Victoria's face went red. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into the leather armrest. "To my daughter, Alexandra," Thomas continued, "who has stood by my side, who shares my vision and values, who has worked tirelessly in the company she helped me build, I leave the remainder of my estate, including Morrison Tech Solutions, all properties, and the balance of my investments and accounts." I couldn't breathe. I had worked at Dad's company since college, starting from the bottom, learning every department. But I never expected this. This is insane. Victoria exploded from her chair. 500,000? 500,000? I'm his daughter, too. "Victoria, please sit down," Thomas said calmly. "Your father made this decision after careful consideration. He felt—" "I don't care what he felt. He was clearly senile, manipulated by her." She pointed at me with such venom I actually flinched. "She poisoned him against me." "Your father was of completely sound mind," Thomas said firmly. "We had multiple assessments done to ensure—" "I'm contesting this," Victoria hissed. "You haven't heard the last of this." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the diplomas on the wall shook. I sat there in silence, still processing everything. Thomas looked at me with sympathy. "Your father anticipated this reaction. He wanted you to have this letter. He handed me an envelope with my name written in Dad's handwriting. I waited until I was alone in my car to open it. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper. My dearest Alex, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm guessing Victoria didn't take the news well. I know this seems harsh, but I need you to understand why I made this choice. Victoria has always been driven by money and status. She chose a path that prioritized appearances over substance. She married Richard not for love, but for his family name and connections. She distanced herself from the business, from me, only showing up when she needed something. You, my darling girl, you stayed. You learned, you grew, you cared about the work, not just the profit. You have my values, my work ethic, my heart. Morrison Tech is not just a company, it's my legacy, my life's work. And I trust you to honor that. I know Victoria will fight this. She'll say terrible things. Stay strong. The truth is in the work you've done, the person you are. I'm so proud of you. All my love, Dad. I sobbed in that parking lot for 20 minutes. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Victoria hired one of the most aggressive attorneys in the state. She filed a lawsuit claiming Dad had been coerced, that he wasn't mentally competent, that I had manipulated him. It was all lies, but lies that got media attention. The local news picked up the story. Tech mogul's daughters battle over $8 million estate. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters camped outside my apartment. Victoria went on the offensive publicly. She gave interviews painting herself as the victim of a gold-digging younger sister. She posted on social media about family betrayal and stolen inheritance. Her friends flooded the comments with support. My friends rallied around me, but I was drowning. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I took a leave of absence from the company because I couldn't focus. Then, exactly 3 weeks after the funeral, something happened that changed everything. I was at Dad's house, going through his home office, boxing up files to take to the company's attorneys. I found a folder labeled Personal, Victoria, hidden in the back of his filing cabinet. Inside were bank statements, private investigator reports, and email printouts going back 5 years. My blood ran cold as I read. Victoria had been stealing from Dad for years. She'd convinced him to co-sign on business ventures that never existed. She'd forged checks. She'd taken out credit cards in his name. Over 5 years, she'd stolen nearly $400,000 from him. The private investigator's report detailed everything. The fake LLC she'd created, the offshore accounts, the paper trail. There were photos of her meeting with the accountant who helped her set it all up. And the emails. God, the emails were brutal. Dad had confronted her about it 8 months before he died. She denied everything, called him paranoid, accused him of favoring me. She'd told him she'd go to the media and destroy his reputation if he reported her to the police. Dad had written in his notes, "I can't report my own daughter. It would destroy her, and despite everything, I love her. But I can't reward this behavior either. The will must reflect the truth of who they are." That's why he'd left her only $500,000. It was more than she deserved after what she'd stolen. I sat on the floor of his office, surrounded by evidence of my sister's betrayal, and something inside me shifted. Victoria wasn't just fighting me over an inheritance. She was a criminal who'd stolen from our dying father, manipulated him, threatened him, and now she was trying to steal even more while destroying my reputation in the process. The grief I'd been drowning in hardened into something else entirely. Determination, calculation, and yes, rage. I made copies of everything. I called Thomas Cartwright, and then I called a different kind of lawyer, a criminal attorney named Marcus Webb, who specialized in white-collar crime. Miss Morrison, Marcus said when we met, spreading the documents across his conference table. This is a prosecutable case. Federal wire fraud, identity theft, forgery. Your sister could be looking at serious prison time. I don't want her in prison, I said quietly. Not yet, anyway. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What do you want? I want justice, and I want her to understand exactly what she's done. Over the next month, while Victoria's lawsuit moved through the courts, I built my case. I worked with forensic accountants. I gathered every piece of evidence. I documented every lie she'd told the media. And I waited for the perfect moment. That moment came at the first major hearing for her lawsuit. The courtroom was packed. Media, family, friends, business associates. Victoria sat at her table looking confident, almost smug. Her attorney had filed motions claiming Dad's mental incompetence, alleging undue influence on my part. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Hammond, called the court to order. Victoria's attorney stood up and began his presentation, showing photos of me and Dad together, trying to paint a picture of manipulation. Your Honor, we have evidence that Alexander Morrison exercised undue influence over her father during his final years, isolating him from his other daughter, Victoria. Objection, Your Honor. Thomas Cartwright stood up. This entire lawsuit is based on a false premise, and we have evidence to prove it. Judge Hammond looked interested. Proceed. Thomas nodded to me and I stood up. My hands weren't shaking. My voice was steady. Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence to the court, evidence that shows exactly why my father made the decisions he did in his will. I watched Victoria's face as Thomas began distributing the documents. Confusion first, then recognition, then pure, undiluted panic. What is this? Her attorney sputtered. This, Thomas said calmly, is documentation of nearly $400,000 in fraudulent transactions, forged checks, and identity theft committed by Victoria Morrison against her father. The courtroom erupted. Reporters started typing frantically. Judge Hammond banged her gavel for order. Victoria's attorney was flipping through the pages, his face going pale. Victoria herself looked like she might be sick. Your Honor, Thomas continued, these documents include bank statements, private investigator reports, email correspondence, and forensic accounting analysis. They conclusively prove that Victoria Morrison engaged in systematic theft from her father. Mr. Morrison discovered this theft approximately 8 months before his death, which directly influenced his decisions regarding his estate plan. Judge Hammond's expression was ice. Ms. Victoria Morrison, do you have a response to these allegations? Victoria's attorney whispered frantically in her ear. She shook her head, tears streaming down her perfect makeup. I need to, Your Honor, I request a recess to, wow? This court is very interested in the truth, Miss Morrison, Judge Hammond said sharply. But given the nature of these allegations, I'm dismissing the current lawsuit. The claim of undue influence or mental incompetence is clearly without merit. The will shall stand as written. Bang. The gavel came down. But it wasn't done yet. As Victoria stood up to leave, I caught her arm. She turned to me, her face a mask of rage and fear. Alex, please, she whispered. Please don't do this. Think about the family. Did you think about family when you stole from Dad while he was dying of cancer? I asked quietly. Did you think about family when you threatened to destroy his reputation if he reported you? Did you think about family when you tried to steal his company from me while lying to the entire world? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice low enough that only she could hear. You're going to drop this lawsuit completely. You're going to issue a public apology admitting you lied about me. You're going to pay back every cent you stole from Dad, not to me, but to the charity foundation he established. I don't have $400,000, she hissed. Then you'll sell that house Richard's family bought you. You'll sell your cars. You'll liquidate your investments. I don't care how you do it, but you'll do it. And if I don't, I held up my phone, showing her the contact information for the district attorney's office. Then I filed criminal charges: wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, extortion. Marcus Webb estimates you'd be looking at 10 to 15 years in federal prison. Your choice, Victoria. The color drained from her face. Why are you doing this? She whispered. I'm your sister. You stopped being my sister when you stole from our dying father and tried to destroy me to cover your crimes, I said. This isn't revenge, Victoria. This is consequences. Something you've never had to face before. She crumpled into her chair, sobbing. Her attorney looked between us, clearly out of his depth. I walked out of that courtroom with my head held high. The next day, Victoria's attorney filed paperwork withdrawing the lawsuit. 2 days after that, she posted a public statement on social media admitting she had made false accusations driven by grief and anger and apologizing to me publicly. The media story shifted overnight. Suddenly, I wasn't the gold digger. I was the sister who'd been vindicated, who'd shown incredible restraint in the face of both betrayal and false accusations. Victoria did sell her house. She liquidated her investment accounts. It took her 9 months, but she paid back $375,000 to Dad's charity foundation. Marcus Webb helped me negotiate a payment plan for the remainder. But the real consequence wasn't financial. It was social. Victoria had built her entire life on appearances, on her reputation, on her position in high society. Richard's family had embraced her because she seemed like the perfect addition to their legacy: educated, sophisticated, connected. When the truth came out about the theft, about the laws, about the lawsuit, that world turned its back on her. Richard's mother stopped taking her calls. The country club didn't renew her membership. Her friends ghosted her. Richard himself. That's where it gets interesting. 6 months after the lawsuit was dismissed, I got a call from Richard. He asked to meet me for coffee. I almost said no, but curiosity got the better of me. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. Richard looked tired, older than his 38 years. I owe you an apology, he said without preamble. I believed Victoria's version of events. I supported her in trying to destroy you. I was wrong. What changed? I asked. I found out she'd been stealing from me too, he said quietly. Credit cards in my name, investments that didn't exist. When I confronted her with your evidence against your father, she admitted it all, everything. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Richard had always been kind to me before all this. I'm filing for a divorce, he continued. My attorney thinks she'll try to take me for everything, but after what she did, I'll fight it with everything I have. I just nodded. For what it's worth, Richard said, standing to leave. Your father would be proud of how you handled this. You could have destroyed her completely. You showed restraint. That takes real strength. That conversation stayed with me. A year and a half after Dad's death, I stood in the boardroom of Morrison Tech Solutions, looking out over the city where he'd built his empire. The company was thriving under my leadership. We'd secured 3 major new contracts. Revenue was up 32%. I'd donated $1 million to Dad's charity foundation in his name. I had promoted 5 employees who'd been overlooked for years. I'd implemented new ethics policies and transparency measures. I was building on his legacy, honoring his values, doing exactly what he'd hoped I would do. Victoria? She was living in a modest apartment across town, working as a sales associate at a boutique. Her divorce from Richard had been finalized. She'd lost almost everything, not because I'd taken it, but because the consequences of her own choices had finally caught up with her. We don't speak. I see her occasionally at family events, distant cousins' weddings, that sort of thing. She looks smaller now, diminished. The confidence that used to radiate from her is gone. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh. If I should have just taken the high road, let the will speak for itself, moved on. But then I remember Dad's face in those final months, when he was weak from chemo and she was stealing from him. I remember the emails where he wrote about feeling betrayed and heartbroken. I remember him choosing to protect her even when it cost him, and I know I made the right choice. Justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about forcing people to face the truth of who they are and what they've done. Victoria had spent her whole life skating by on charm and manipulation, never facing real consequences. She'd learned that tears and tantrums and playing the victim could get her out of anything. I didn't let her get away with it. And maybe, that will make her a better person eventually. Though, honestly, that's not my problem anymore. I have a company to run, a legacy to honor, and a life to build. 3 months ago, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single handwritten note. You were right about everything. I'm sorry for what I did to Dad. I'm sorry for what I did to you. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand. V. I kept the note. I don't know if I'll ever respond. Maybe someday. Maybe never. But I do know this. I sleep soundly at night. My conscience is clear. And every day when I walk into Morrison Tech Solutions, I feel Dad's presence. Proud of the woman I've become and the choices I've made. Some people might say I should have just walked away, let the will stand, avoided the whole messy confrontation. But those people don't understand that sometimes letting someone get away with evil isn't kindness. It's cowardice. Justice matters. Truth matters. Consequences matter. And sometimes the best revenge isn't about destruction. It's about forcing someone to look in the mirror and finally see themselves clearly.